reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is The Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's The Horror Deconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, most likely on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon, hit that thumbs up with your host, KOMP and
THEA.
Today's film is...
Scream. With no 5, but it is technically 5.
Wait, you telling me I didn't go back in time in the movies when this happened? I can't believe it. This is
I
outrageous.
know.
Next thing you'll tell me they did the same thing with Halloween. So, Scream. Scream 5 or Scream 2022. Why am I reading the wrong... I'm already screwed up. On the IMDb, it says Scream 5 2022, and this is like a page before it's even made.
Oh, no.
Anyway, let me just put the gist of it. The daughter of Billy Loomis, the killer, grows up.
Spoiler up front.
There's a new killer slashing all these people, and it's a legacy sequel.
25
that's trying to be
years
a reboot.
after a streak of brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, California, a new killer dons the Ghostface mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past. That's a long fucking sentence.
Beautiful,
that is
beautiful. I don't know how I ended up on the page that I am. I must have went to.
You're on like an
QMDB.
in development Scream page that existed before the movie did.
So yes, directed by Matt Bettinelli, Olpin, and Tyler Gillette, written by James Vanderbilt, Guy Busiek, and based on characters by Kevin Williamson. Yeah, okay, because I was actually surprised after I saw those credits. Starring Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette as legacy characters, but really starring Melissa Barrera, Jack Quaid, and Mikey Madison, as well as other people like Jasmine Savoy Brown and others. So THEA, Scream has returned nearly 2 hour reboot. It's an hour and 54 minutes. Mm-hmm. A legacy sequel that was brought upon mostly due to the, I guess, Halloween. Really, the remake for Halloween. I think it was 2018. The Halloween remake really started back the want for these movies to return. Although Scream was not really out of the woods really entirely. There was a Scream 4 in the couple years ago. And I was trying to figure out because this one actually was a bona fide hit, as in it made money. And I was like, is that pandemic money, good for pandemic? And then I actually looked at the amount of money that the Scream movies did, and 4 really was a bomb compared to the other movie. It made about $95 million worldwide compared to the other ones, where this latest one just made $138 million, which is about $30 million less than Scream 3. What's your history with the Scream movies altogether? Have you seen all the franchises and all the TV shows and all that?
I have seen all of the movies in the franchise. I haven't seen... I think I've seen a part of the first series of the show, but I sort of fell off because it didn't grab me that much. Okay. I heard it actually got better after first season.
Yeah, so with me, I've seen, I guess, every Scream film except for part 4. I just didn't have I think what happened is I saw part 3 and I disliked it so much that I think Danny was telling me, Scream 3 is great. And I was like, okay. Or somebody told me Scream 3 was great.
I don't mind 3.
Once I saw Jay and Silent Bob in it, I was like, what? I was like, I couldn't I was like, I understand it's like a sort of comedy films, but I couldn't take it. So I didn't see part 4. I did like that it had, was it Elizabeth? What's the niece of... the actress, the one from American Horror Story, whatever she was.
Yes.
Somebody was the villain in that movie. I'm not going to spoil who it was, but
Roberts, whatever.
You're right. So I read all the spoilers for that, and I was like, okay. So I just saw that. So it's one of those things where you watch a franchise. So I didn't feel like I was missing anything by not seeing part 4.
Not.
So
you didn't miss anything.
So I did see Scream season 1 and 2, which I actually liked. I had a nice couple of characters, but it's one of those series where it's based on Scream, so characters got to get killed off. It's a Scream show. And they would kill off. They would introduce a new character one episode just to kill them off, so they can keep a quota up.
Okay.
And I did not see the 3rd season of Scream because they got rid of the cast from the first 2 seasons, and they decided to quote unquote urbanize it. So they made it more of, I guess, African American Scream. I guess, which is fine. But I didn't watch it, so I heard it was a terrible season. It was on MTV, so MTV obviously. I can't even imagine putting a TV show on MTV. Do you understand what I mean? If you there's certain cable channels
compared to the other programming.
Right, there's certain cable channels where you just know that there's no chance of shows surviving on them, and
it's hard to rebrand something that's that specific. Like MTV feels so music specific that it's very
Right.
it feels like it's very hard to rebrand as like now we have like teen drama or
Right.
teen horror or
Although
genre,
their reality shows, because they had the real world like introduced in the late 80s or whatever 90s, so they actually have some footing in there. But like actual drama series, I can't imagine they're working on there. So anyway, they even didn't have the ghost face mask because they didn't want to pay the royalties for the mask because the actual Scream character mask was taken from an actual store, so it's not like they created that, so they always have to pay money to these people. So I'm sure the corporation is like, fuck, can we just buy out this mask from you? And they're like, oh no, I'm making money off of this. Of course not.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's I bet you that is one of the luckiest people who ever designed that mask, because they're
so
raking
lucky.
in so much money from that.
And
So
I think
good
the
for them.
story is like some person who was low down on the ladder in the art department picked it up because they had to.
Well, that's great, and I bet you that guy is now like working somewhere else. He's like, you couldn't make that mask up. Anyway, so that is the history of Scream for us, at least. So that leads us up to Scream 5, and all I saw were rave reviews for it. I was, this is great, and then some very like drop in the buckets like things going, if you saw the first 4, this is the same thing, and I'm here to say, yeah, that's about right.
Sure.
Is it compared to the first one, or do you compare it to the second or third one? What say you, Thea?
I enjoyed it because I sort of had an expectation going in that it was going to be pretty I mean, every single movie that comes out in the franchise is referential, but this one was very specifically referential to the very first Scream, which is the one I have the most nostalgia for, and so does my partner has. So it was enjoyable because it's like reliving the movie that we love the most of this franchise.
Okay.
Because it's hitting a lot of the same sort of tent poles.
Like I said earlier, I was actually surprised when I saw 2 different writers as the writers of the screenplay, because it felt like a Kevin Williamson movie. Like I was like, the way that the characters spoke, very vomit dialogue, as in like they're just vomiting dialogue, and they're vomiting these references and stuff like that. And I was like, once I saw it wasn't Kevin Williamson, because I saw a clip of him on set, so I just assumed that he was part of the film as the writer again, because he was, I think, from the last part 4 with Wes Craven. So I'm sure that's kind of a bummer that him and Wes Craven worked together on the 4th one, and it didn't, sell as well as they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And then obviously he passed away, and then they name a character Wes in here, and he gets the worst murder in the film. You just said what the storyline is, but we're focusing on Melissa Barrera, who is from a movie that I actually really liked, was In the Heights. It was a musical about New York City and Washington Heights. She played the lead in that. I thought she was. I think in the movie she was playing Puerto Rican or Dominican. I think she might have been Puerto Rican in the film, but she's actually Mexican. So I was super surprised at that. So we actually have a Latina lead in the movie. There is no reference at all besides her and her sister, who's played by Jenna Ortega. They actually do look very similar, which I was happy with. So Jenna Ortega is playing Tara Carpenter. Obviously, Carpenter is a John Carpenter reference. She starts out the film mostly like the Drew Barrymore role in the first film. What worked with you with these characters? Like which characters worked for you and which ones didn't?
I felt like, I don't know. I went back and forth sort of on our main heroine. I thought she was pretty good. I liked her okay. I think she did the job that you would expect. She just didn't have as much charisma for me as maybe a Nev Campbell.
Fair enough, because she comes in haunted already.
Yeah,
like,
and so she doesn't have a lot. She doesn't have much very much leeway in terms of levels. So she is kind of mostly one level throughout the movie.
Because Sydney is haunted Sydney is haunted in the first film, but she's able to have friends and stuff like that. She's rounded out by a couple of pretty memorable characters. I don't think the characters in this are very memorable, actually.
No, I think the most memorable probably was the niece of Randy. Like Randy's niece is probably the one who is the horror.
Jasmine Savoy Brown, right? Mindy Meeks Martin.
And that actress, I think, is also in Yellow Jackets, I believe.
Okay, yeah. The first time I believe I saw her was in The Leftovers season 2.
Right.
She's great in that. She's not in there for long, but
she plays one of the teenage versions in Yellow Jackets, and she's great.
Yeah, she is in there.
Really
and she was also, oh my god, she was in one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Yes, Sound of Violence, which in theory the idea she's great in it. And the movie is shot fine. It looks fine. It's about this woman who, like a young woman who's trying to collect sounds to make some sort of avant-garde, like a new sound, like music or something like that. But it's like sort of weird ambient stuff. So she kills people and gets their sound. But it's like, it's so ridiculously put together. The only other movie I could put it to, like, make it seem like was this art house slasher movie that had Jake Gyllenhaal. I can't think of the name of that film. It's just not a very good movie, but she's good. So that's the thing. She's good in here, and she's also playing an LGBT character. I didn't have a problem with her brother either, Mason Gooding, who plays Chad Meeks Martin. It was nice to see Randy's sister come back, Heather Matazzaro. I think the last horror movie I saw her in was that horrible what was that movie, Hostel 2. But it was nice that she was a lead in that movie because she's a very art house actor. So rounding out the cast is obviously Jack Quaid, who is from The Boys, as Richie Kirsch. I mean, did you see what was coming with him? It seemed like it would be obvious with him, but I wasn't sure about it.
I went back and forth, which I think is what you're supposed to do, right? Like, he's the obvious pick because of who he is to the main character, and so it sort of makes sense.
And as a lead,
but
right?
I thought they did a pretty good job of him going sort of back and forth.
Okay.
In terms of being suspecting him, for me anyway. Yeah,
they did. They did do a good, deal about at least making him seem as a red herring, with him obviously being the guy at the end. And he's a good actor in general anyway. It still blows my mind that he's not Randy Quaid's, the other Quaid's son, the good Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son, yeah. This
the good Quaid's son.
Well, it depends on what you think. There's also Mikey Madison as Amber Freeman.
I suspected her right away.
Yeah, I mean, like, wow. Because somebody was saying, once you see this character, they're the bad guy.
Yeah.
But then for some reason, when I'm kind of working on the Hardy Construction Twitter, I had no idea that we were subscribed to a Scream Twitter account, and it just said, "Hey, it shows her with a gun." I was like, "Well, there you go. That's her as the killer."
Spoiled.
Can you talk a little bit about her character?
Yeah, Amber Freeman is the sort of best friend of the younger sister, Tara, and it feels like when Big Sister sort of comes back, she's been out of the picture for a while. You can feel Amber get very protective of her best friend and feels like she's been sort of fulfilling the sister role, which I felt like that was the direction they were going in. So it was interesting that they took it not in that direction at all.
But she doesn't seem to have any sort of character in the film.
No, she just seems ominous, sort of. Throughout.
She looks fucking evil. Like she looks
she looks a little bit like the actress that played sort of the horror child character in many films such as Silent Hill.
I see what you're saying. Oh, right. I know which actor you're talking about.
Yes.
And she has these very like dark eyes, as in like she seems like I don't know, it's just something about her.
Shark eyes.
Yes, like a doll's eyes.
Yeah.
Have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I have not. I'm sorry.
I do not want to spoil that movie for you.
Oh, you can spoil it. I don't care.
And I'm sorry if you haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for anybody who was watching this, so this is spoilers.
Spoilers are coming.
Jump a minute ahead from what I just say right now. She dies the exact same way in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The exact same way. She gets set on fire and she gets shot to death. So it's clearly a reference to that film. So I don't know why. Like, it's almost like, it's almost like a joke, like, we wouldn't kill her this way, but then they actually do it the exact same way. So I was kind of like, what the hell was the point of that?
It's a weird choice. And then it's like, at that point, it's like, I mean, I guess, I don't know.
There's large chunks of the film where she's just not talking to anybody. She's just sort of kind of moving around in the background.
She's just sort of there. It's hard because they have so many characters.
Right.
And, like, how do you give everybody sort of the right amount of screen time?
And it's weird because I've seen like Dylan Minnette. I guess he's the lead from 13 Reasons Why, although he looks like another actor from Percy Jackson, I thought, or something like that. And I was just like, why do I know this guy? Because to me he looks like he should be older than all these people because I've seen him years ago in something else, but I just am mistaking him as another actor, and he's playing Wes. I genuinely felt bad for him and his mother character, Judy.
Yeah.
Who was, I didn't know what her relation was to, what's his name, Dewey in the fourth film.
Right.
But they get chopped out, and I was like, And there's no reality behind a fucking officer being killed. Was it chief of police getting killed? And there was no lockdowns or anything? And there was
it was also in the middle of the day, and she was, like, screaming bloody murder.
The same town that this has happened 4 times before, and there's, like, no
if I lived in that
protocol.
neighborhood.
You know what I mean? It's weird. I know it's a nitpicking for a horror franchise, but get the fuck out of here with that already.
It's pretty wild. I don't know. That did definitely. I was like, I don't know if I can go along with this one.
Yeah. So 2 little minor ones that are here was Sonia Amar as Liv Mackenzie, who's the girlfriend of Chad Meeks. Mm-hmm. She seems like she's from another film. She looks about 10 years older. I mean, the way she's dressed. Yeah. She just looks like somebody that came out from a 90s movie. Yeah. And, like, actually just walked out from back then to now. Because, funny enough, if you ever see footage of people from the 80s and we wonder why kids in the 80s movies, like teenagers, look like adults, they actually did look like adults. It's so strange. Because I saw footage of actual kids in a high school in 1982 or something, and they looked like 30-year-old kids. She looks like an adult. Compared to the rest of them, the way she's dressed, her mannerisms, I found her annoying. I didn't even want to deal with her character as much. She's whatever. Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis. The thing that had me laughing when I saw his character in the film. It was nice to see him in the movie, but he's suddenly some sort of he's like the Green Goblin. Like, you know how you know, he's just like this evil visionary character in somebody's room. And I was like, this kind of corny, but it's nice to see him regardless. Yeah. And I thought about him being on Riverdale, and he left it, quote unquote, with my fingers because there was no character development. And I'm like, what did you do with this movie? You know what I mean? What's so great about this role? And you realize,
this is a legacy.
It's $100,000. Yeah, it's $100,000.
Right?
That's the part of it.
Well, exactly.
So let's go to the rest of the legacy cast. I like what they did with the legacy cast for the most part, except for one giant thing that I think they screwed up, a big screw up. Like I think they did with Scream 2, where they screwed up killing Randy. Neve Campbell, great. You know, let her be the golden child. Let her be untouchable. Let her exist. I want her to have her happy ending, because whenever you see a legacy character in a horror film, they're fucking dead meat, which sucks. Yeah. The biggest thing to me was Nightmare on Elm Street 4, when they killed the big dude in the car park, and they killed the guy who couldn't talk, and I was like, fuck these movies, because those are my favorite characters from Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So we got Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers. To be honest, I wouldn't have minded if they killed her off. I gotta be honest, because Gail Weathers, I think she served her purpose as a character, and I think, I don't know if it was some sort of weird, this is going to sound super sexist from me, and I don't mean it that way. I don't know if it's like a female empowerment thing, because the series are mostly female empowerment, which is fine. By just having the 2 women survive. Yeah. But what I'm looking at it, honestly, with David Arquette as Dewey, he became, in this film alone, he became Dr. Loomis for me. And I was like, yeah, he could have survived, and he could have been that Dr. Loomis character for the rest of these movies. Plus, the motherfucker could use the paycheck, David Arquette. And
it would have been an interesting. It could have been a more interesting redemption arc.
Absolutely, because if Gail died and he's, like, hunting them down, then he can, we can see him have his own arc as a character. And I thought that was a completely blown opportunity with him. I thought they really fucked up with killing him off. But I guess, Courtney Cox is a bigger name than him, and Neve Campbell isn't as big a name as Courtney Cox. But Courtney Cox is forever will be Monica from Friends, so she's got job stability, and I'm sure it's fun. She's not really in films, so she's gonna keep that job. And I think it sucks that they killed David Arquette, but they always got to do it with these legacy films. But what did you think of the actual kills in the movie?
I thought they were okay. Like, there weren't any that were, like, so totally memorable. I liked the ones that were referential to the originals, but I mean, I guess the most memorable one to me, because it made me go, ugh, was when he's, like, stabbing what's his bucket in the neck. Wes, I guess it was.
Wes, or I
think
that was the most graphic one. Yeah, it was the most graphic one in the film. Because they even end up in Stu's house from the first film. Yeah. And, that's obviously a big Easter egg for everybody who's watched the original films. Stu was my favorite character from the first film besides Randy.
Yeah.
And there was there was supposed to be Stu was in the original script of the fourth film. Stu was supposed to be in jail directing the killers, and that's why in this movie they don't say, "Oh, Stu is dead." They never say that, even though he had a fucking TV fall on his head. Like he looked pretty dead in that movie.
Yeah, he's pretty dead.
But like, who wouldn't want Matthew Lillard back in a movie? I love Matthew Lillard. Matthew Lillard's great. So
I would almost. I mean, I would have rather seen him than Skeet. I'm sorry, Skeet.
Yeah, and Skeet's name is a horrible reference in rap music. Anyway, but then also like I would like to see Matt Lillard back in some capacity. So we'll see what happens with these characters. Obviously, going to be making another film.
I mean,
after this.
That would have been a much more interesting ending for Scream 4, let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, because I catch the last 10 minutes of it, and I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, it's no big deal for me. And it was a nice send-off, but, they're obviously going to keep making money for these movies. What were things that didn't work for you with this movie, in the most part? I
mean, I guess there were a couple of moments, like we talked about, like suspension of disbelief in terms of how the kills are carried out. In a town where this happens every time. Like, it would have been interesting to see some references like that, where it's like, oh, people in this neighborhood are very protective of, like, like they're very prepared.
Absolutely. My thing is that I really like whodunit slashers, as in you don't know who the killer is. Here, I think everything looks pretty telegraphed, but I mean, I had that poisoned from me before I saw the film, since I saw the photo of Mikey with a gun. So would I have guessed it was her? I don't know. I would have probably guessed it was the boyfriend, Jack Quaid, playing Richie, way ahead of time. But who knows? As a film itself, I think I was entertained. So I think in the long run, that's what is the whole reason to see these types of films.
Yeah, 100%.
I wouldn't say I was over the moon about it, but I certainly was not disappointed in the film. Like when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that was good. I was not like upset about it. Besides the Dewey character. I thought it was it's a solid sort of movie for what it is in the Scream franchise, because there have been plenty of movies that try to ape this series and don't have the legs. Even I Know What You Did Last Summer, they tried to make it into a TV show recently, and it's not even coming back anymore.
I can't imagine that's good.
Yeah, apparently it pissed off the LGBTQ plus crowd at the end too for what happens. And well, yeah, but you know how people are.
No, I know.
So, what rating would you give Scream 2022?
I would give it. I'm gonna say 7.5 out of 10. Neck gurgling, stabbing, as you cry your last breath.
It seems like it didn't hit something vital, though. It seemed like it went through his mouth and out of his neck. Well, I guess you're right. I will give it a 6.5 out of 10. Being the boyfriend, because you know what, as the boyfriend's job in a slasher movie is to make up the wrongs of the previous 3 sequels and be the killer that the world needs you to be. And with that, Thea, what's the final word?
Cox.